In this video, we're going to talk about the 6 questions you can use. 6, can you see? 6 questions you can use to help your clients change beliefs. And beliefs are so foundational. They are the essence of behavior change, but most coaches just try to use motivation to change behavior, and that's a huge mistake. You got to understand how to untie the knots which are inside your client's belief system. Now make sure you watch the entire video because you need the whole well-rounded approach to be able to help your clients with their beliefs. And when you're able to help your clients change their beliefs, you'll be a better coach. And when you are a better coach, you'll get more clients. Let's talk about beliefs. Okay. Is that your response? Was that, what was that? Was that a purr? Was that a moan? What was that?
That's my embodied response to beliefs.
Apparently. Sounded kind of like a growl. I don't know. Is that you just preparing for the conversation?
I am getting revved up.
That's what it was. It was a rev. That's definitely what it was. So let's rev up here and talk about beliefs. It's like one of the cornerstone discussions that we get into so often with this kind of work. This kind of work being deep coaching, transformational coaching. And if you're new to the channel, we produce multiple videos every single week on the inner game of coaching, the strategy of building a business, all things related to deep coaching and transformational coaching. So if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe, hit the bell. You'll get the notifications and all that good stuff. And we're over 20,000 subscribers now. Did you know that?
Oh, I saw it on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's a huge deal. It's a huge
it's really
deal.
cool.
Yeah, it's like
really
10
cool.
years of consistent work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 10 years of consistent work.
10 years.
It's been over 10 years. Yeah. It's been a few years of consistent work. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But nobody, I heard somebody tell me the other day that he went back and watched my earliest videos. I thought it was really cool because he said he wanted to see the early days. And we got into this discussion that was like all around the value of the grind, the value of being in it for a long time. And so he said that whenever he comes across somebody that he might want to learn from, he tries to find their earliest stuff. And so then he was telling me about the videos of running up the hill and pulling my underwear out of my butt and
classic
running with the bandana and or the headband rather, and on the basketball court. So it's also kind of cool because he was like telling me all these old videos that I remember from way back in the day. But that was really neat. Like he values the origin. And it's something that I think in our society, we jump over a little bit too much. We want to go to the quick fix. And that's a good segue back into this conversation around beliefs, because people try to make a quick shift in their behavior or a quick shift in their circumstances way too often. And I think it's sad that we believe that the shortcut is possible. Not that there aren't ways to do things faster, of course. And there are some legitimate success stories that happen really fast. But for the most part, those are anomalies. And if we want to produce long-lasting, sustainable change, we have to go to the foundation of the issue, whether it's a behavior pattern, an addiction, or in this case, we're going to dive into a belief, which is underneath the behavior patterns and the addictions and the sabotage and all of that stuff. So we got to get to the foundation if we want to build something new, build something better that's going to support whatever changes that we really truly want to make in our lives. And if we're not doing belief change work as coaches, I think we're doing our clients a disservice.
Mm.
If we are telling people that they can make behavioral changes without making belief changes, then we're selling snake oil.
Yeah.
But people want that to be true. And because people want it to be true, meaning I want to be able to change my patterns without changing the ingredients that created the patterns, I don't want to have to deal with that stuff. I don't want to have to
Yeah.
confront anything and heal any, griefs or wounds or any of that sort of stuff. But I just want to make the change, right? So if you can just tell me how to build my muscles without going to the gym or doing any exercise at all, then I've got some money for you. I've got a blank check for you. So one of the challenges that people are wanting that, which means they are demanding that, which means people are selling that. My experience is, I mean, truly, I've never seen it happen once, not a single time, because it's the belief that created the pattern. So that would be like wanting to change the flower in the garden without planting new seeds.
Right.
You're not going to keep the same seeds that produced a thorn bush and have it produce daisies, right? Like just because you want a different thing above the surface, you have to change the seeds. And in our beliefs, or in our behaviors rather, beliefs are the seeds that turn into our behavior patterns. So we're going to go through 6 questions that you can use with your clients to help them change a belief. But on top of that little discussion of a belief, let's simplify what the definition of a belief is, which is just simply, well, why don't you share the definition and don't get it wrong, otherwise you don't get to continue the video.
Will I be kicked out of the video completely, or will I just have to sit here in silence?
I'll just put my hand over your side of the Zoom.
Perfect. I like that because then I'll be featured and your face will be covered. A belief is very, very simply a story plus a lot of evidence.
I thought I was testing you. It's right there in the notes.
What? Wait, what? What's in the notes? It's in my head.
And you wrote the notes. So so it's just a story plus evidence. It's extremely simple. And it has to be simple if we want to understand it and then actually be able to change it. We have a ton of beliefs. They come from a ton of different inputs and they feel complicated, but they're not complicated. A belief is simply a story plus evidence. The more evidence that a story has, the more true a belief feels. And the more that a story is repeated, the more cemented a belief is in our embodiment, in our belief system, and it manifests into the behaviors that we have, etc. But a belief is nothing more than a story plus evidence. And all of the beliefs that hold us back, which we most of the time refer to as limiting beliefs, the beliefs that are stopping us from creating the life that we want, are all false, meaning that we started those beliefs at one point in time. We weren't born with the beliefs that we're not valuable or we're not good enough or that we can't succeed or that other people are worthy of love or relationships or money, but not us. None of those beliefs are embedded into the soil of our soul. Those are learned as we grow as humans. One of the challenges is they're learned so early that it feels like we were just born with them. Because for a lot of us, we can't remember pre-belief. We can't remember intellectually a time when we did just fully love ourselves and totally accepted ourselves and believed that we should have everything that we want in life. And we just went after everything with reckless abandon and perseverance. A lot of us can't remember vividly being in that place. And so it doesn't feel like we ever turned that dial down or turned that switch off. But we did. And we have to believe that as coaches. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to help people change their beliefs.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to help people unravel the beliefs unless we recognize and we understood that at one point in time that belief wasn't there. So what we're helping our clients do is undo a belief that was created.
Mm.
If the belief wasn't created, then we're not going to be able to uncreate it. And if the belief is what's created the behavior, but we can't uncreate the belief, well, then we can't change the behavior.
No.
Other than just motivating ourselves to overpower its temptation. But as soon as the motivation goes away, the behavior comes back or the
Yeah.
temptation comes back, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And magical transformation of humans really requires simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simple definition of a belief that we're going to look at.
I
You want to
remember,
add?
yeah, not that long ago, I was actually really almost irritated by the simplicity of it because I was out on a walk and I was irritated about something, and I stopped myself and just started to ask, some of the questions around what is it that's actually irritating me. And when I recognized it was the story that I was telling, and the evidence that I had to support the story is just what made it really real for me. And that all I needed to do was simply tell a new story to experience something different. Like as soon as I stopped telling the story, I remember being on the walk, Sean, I stopped in my tracks because it was so disjointing. Like to me, I immediately felt better. And I was like, wait, like, is that it's like, it can't be that simple, because when I'm in my emotions, right, like it has got to be complicated, right? Because it feels so complicated and I'm holding on to it so tightly that just the simplicity of it was actually frustrating me. And I remember there was like a week I did like a Instagram live with somebody from our community because I was so just flabbergasted that it really simply came down to this. It's just a story that I'm telling, and I can tell either the complete story or I can tell another story. So this, to what you were saying, this is everything with our clients. It's everything.
And irritating, and the simple understanding isn't enough. So
Mm-mm.
that's the foundational awareness of and understanding of beliefs, but that's not the essence of the work. I mean,
No.
because otherwise it would just be, just affirm your way into a new behavior pattern or affirm your way into a new belief.
Right.
And one of the reasons that for most people, affirmations don't work at changing beliefs is because that's not how the beliefs were created. None
Right.
of us wrote affirmations on note cards and then started to feel like we were not valuable or unlovable. That's not the way they're created. So
Mm-mm.
that's not going to be the way they're uncreated. And I don't have anything against affirmations. If they work, they work. For most people, they don't work at creating sustainable change.
Right.
They can be an ingredient that helps in the overall recipe and help change our minds and so forth. But I've never known affirmations or anything similar and just like, oh, I wish that were different. I wish I could just change my story. And because it's just a story with evidence, well, then let's just tell a new story. It's it's the truth, but not the answer.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is it is the truth and it is the answer, but it's not really the way to the answer.
Yeah, it's not the path.
Yeah. So it's kind of simultaneously the answer and not the answer.
Mhm.
But the simplicity of it is important to understand in order to be able to actually do the work, which isn't easy. Right. So
Right.
this is simple, but not easy.
Mm.
The concepts are simple, but what makes it not easy is how committed we are to that old belief or how familiar we are to the stories that come off of that belief and the patterns and the familiarity that that belief has created. So simple but hard is personal development for most of us, right? And we create the hard because it's the emotional attachment, similar to what you said. It's got
Mhm.
to be complicated. It's got to be this, or this is not the answer that I was looking for. And very rarely are we looking for simple answers
Mm-mm.
unless we've done work like this and we know the answers are simple. Like you've spent thousands and thousands of hours in coaching as a coach, studying, training, going through your own breakthroughs. But early on in our journey, especially, or with anybody that doesn't really truly study this stuff, we're not looking for simple. The only simple we're looking for is shortcut simple.
Right.
But shortcut simple is not real simple. It's not sustainable simple, right?
No, and our clients are going to come to us if feeling inside of the complication and believing that the solution is absolutely complicated because that's where they're at and that's how they feel inside of that moment. And even as I've continued to evolve in this work, just that awareness of the simplicity of the answer to what you said just lets me know that now I need to go get some support in order to walk out the path in order to actually make the change. So the clarity on the simplicity might be there, but the solution still is excavated with support.
Yeah, I agree. That's been my experience and certainly what we believe in and what we teach in our coaching programs and certifications and so forth. So let's open up these 6 questions. These aren't necessarily the entire universe of belief questions. And sometimes you don't even have to answer to ask all 6 of them. Sometimes people will sort of jump from one to another or answer 2 or 3 of them just by asking, question number 3. So I don't want you to any of you watching this to think that this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 framework that's always going to be required or the people are going to go through that sequence exactly. And if you're relatively new as a coach and you are going to use these questions and start here, I would say, if this is something that you have the body to dive into. And if you don't have the body to dive into, check out our certification program if that's something that you want to see if it's a good fit for you. We'll put a card somewhere and put it in the description. So the first question is this universally true or is it an opinion?
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. People generally do not like, especially when we're in the irritation, when we're in the blame, when we're in the process of trying to find who's at fault or protecting ourselves. We don't like anything that points back to us.
Mm-mm.
But if it doesn't point back to us, then we can't do anything. Like if we don't recognize that our hands are wrapped around the problem, then we can't change the problem. We just hope that we can only then hope that anybody who is holding the problem, which is essentially what we're doing when we're blaming, we just hope that they're going to solve our problems. And that'll only happen never. So the empowerment of recognizing that this is something I'm holding on to, I'm doing this to myself, or I'm creating this issue, or I'm prolonging whatever it is. There's got to be some level of personal ownership, but people really don't like that. And so
No.
this question is framed in a way that it kind of softens the blow a little bit. And it softens it by asking, is this a universal truth? Meaning, is this thing true for everybody? And all we have to do is find one person who might not believe something in order to prove that the universal nature isn't true, that this belief isn't a universal thing that applies to everyone. Now, we don't want to put these questions on our clients as though we're trying to prove them wrong. So that's not what we're trying to do, is get them to admit they're stupid or they're wrong or anything like that. And that's why the question is framed in a soft kind of way that it's framed. So is it universally true or is it an opinion? And we ask it in a way that yields their opportunity to say it is universally true. And it's not just an opinion, but they kind of can't, right? Like, so we're allowing them to if they're going to make that case, but they never will be able to because all of these beliefs are opinions, the beliefs that hold us back. Like, I'm not able to succeed, or sales is icky. Like, that's a lot of one of the things that a lot of coaches struggle with is, I just don't like sales. Okay, great. Is that a universal thing that everybody doesn't like sales, or is it just an opinion? Clearly, nobody can say, well, nobody likes sales, because just look around. There's a lot of people that do like sales. And whoever hurt us to give us the fear of sales, that person probably likes sales, because they probably like their fear, or their love of sales to take advantage of us or something. Anyway, that was a little bit of a broad judgment stroke there, but the question itself is brilliant in the wording, in that you get to answer it, but I know the answer is going to be that it's just an opinion. And it's really critical that people recognize this is an opinion. And that's an empowerment shift, especially when there's rapport and you ask the questions, the way that can retain the dignity of the client, not make them feel wrong. Uh, it feels good when people can say, actually, this is just my opinion, and the coach is advocating for them instead of being an adversary to them. And without this piece, we can't change the belief, because if it is a universal truth, then what are we doing trying to change it, right? So that's a really important question, and one of the early ones that's critical in the process.
Yeah, I'm just loosening their grip. Mhm.
Yeah, he thinks so.
Absolutely. He's got a lot to say today.
Perfect.
All
Anything
right.
else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, my words to what you said, it's just important because they feel like facts. And I get that. And so when I'm talking to my clients, as a coach, that's a really important thing to just remember, that helps me to have compassion for them and where they're at on their journey. Because when we've been telling a story for a really, 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 really long time, and some of these stories we've been telling since we were toddlers, they feel like facts. And so it's a really important dance to kind of like sort of massage the soil, right? Loosen up the roots a little bit. We're not necessarily trying to grab it and yank it out, right away by saying like, that's false, right? You're making this up. This is not a universal truth, because it feels like it's really, really, really real for us. And I just think that's an important thing to remember when we're working with our clients, to be, we can, have that relationship where we can kind of poke at them a little bit, but to have that compassion to understand that many of us have been holding on to this for a while.
And it can be real and false at the same time.
Mm,
So something can be real in the sense that we believe it, or we've built patterns on top of the belief. So it is real that we believe this, and it's false.
right.
Like, factually, it's not true that we're unlovable, but it can be real that we feel unlovable. And
Yeah.
that distinction, I think, is really critical. And as a coach, if we understand that, then we can let people have their real feelings and still challenge the truthfulness
Mm,
of it. And that's where we can find an opening. And one of the ways to do that is to challenge the source. So the next question is, what is the source of the story, or who is the source of the story? And most of our beliefs were given to us by somebody externally when we were young. I'd say most of the time, probably 70-80% of the time, is our parents,
yeah.
because, or our parent or parental figures, because those were the people that were around us the most when we were trying to figure out this thing called life, and we were asking them the questions, or they were giving us the lessons to the best of their ability. And it's virtually impossible to parent without giving your children your beliefs,
Mm,
because our behaviors and our language are based upon our beliefs. And so our parents are usually donating, not intentionally or consciously, but they're donating their beliefs to us. And
Mm,
then we're, 2 years old or 4 years old or something. We don't have the life experience to go, you know what? I don't think I want to pick that one up. We don't have the ability to know that we can discern between the stories that we have. So we just
mm,
adopt it as true. And then we hold on to them as facts, like you said,
mm,
and build a life upon them.
mm.
But identifying that there's an actual source of the story. So if somebody recognizes this is not a universal truth, then somebody learned this belief from someone, and somebody else could learn a totally different belief from somebody else. So if two stories were started, then somebody started the stories.
Mm.
And that's a really powerful shift for people to recognize that somebody gave this to me, or something, some environment gave this to me. Now, that doesn't mean your parents are bad people.
Yeah.
Sometimes our clients don't want to say, I got this belief from my parents, because they don't like the belief. So then if they say, I got the belief from my parents, well, that means my parents are jerks, or my
Yeah.
parents are bad, and that's not the case. We can love, appreciate, totally adore, like somebody, and recognize we got a belief from them.
Right.
Those are not either or scenarios.
That's so important. Like back to what you were saying a moment ago, right? That both can live, right? We can love and adore and know that they were doing the absolute best that they possibly could have done. And we picked up this belief from them that both things are allowed to be true.
Yeah, it's similar to the idea that it can be real and false at the same time.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that must also be correct, that something can be true and not real. So there can be the existence of love all around us, but we don't feel it. There can be opportunities all around us that we're not tapping into. So they don't so it doesn't feel real to us, but it does actually exist. So something can be true and not real, and if we're defining real as whether we're experiencing it or not,
Mm.
or something can be fake and real, or untrue and real. So now what we're playing with is the dichotomy of existence and experience. So something can exist, but we don't experience it. Therefore, it's true, but not real. Or something cannot exist, but we do experience it. Therefore, it's false, but real. Or the other two options, it can exist and we experience it, or it cannot exist and we don't experience it. But for the most part, we're in coaching, we're dealing with the conflict relationship, something that actually exists that we don't experience, or something that doesn't exist that we do experience. And then we can do something about it, right? If that kind of conflict doesn't live, that isn't real, then there's nothing we can do about it, right? So again, we're just picking apart, and that's part of this deep work philosophy, and the process is we're picking it apart mostly with exploratory questions. So the third question is, what is it costing you?
Yeah.
And this is intentionally open so that the client can go wherever they're going to go with that particular question. Some people will go financial, some people will go energetic, or health. It's costing me my health and vitality. Some people will go more emotional. It's costing me my self-love, or costing me connection with other people. We very rarely want to direct a client in any way.
Mm.
We want to know what's up for them. Because a lot of times, if we direct them, if we say, like, where is this costing you financially in your life? They might answer that question, but the real cost could be emotional.
Right.
But we could be giving them an out by not allowing them to really answer from a truthful place, if we just kind of direct it
Mhm.
there. So, and essentially, this is a leverage question. What is it costing you? Brings the awareness that generally that there's some pain here, that there's irritation, that there's something that I don't want, because costing isn't something that we generally enjoy, right? We don't like the fact that we're sacrificing certain things, or we're costing our happiness, or we're leaving money on the table. So this is a really powerful leverage question of whether the person even wants to change.
Yeah, I think we have to bring awareness to the consequences, right? It really is about the questions that we're asking are bringing, like, shining a light, like, consciously and intentionally onto the situation. And with a lot of these beliefs that are, deeply embedded and in our programming, we just move with them, like with the way we breathe or the way we walk. We don't even think about it. We just operate on autopilot inside of them. So a question like this has us really stop and shine a light on it and be like, wait a minute, what if I keep telling this story, like, how is this actually affecting me? Like, really? And that's so powerful, to what you said, to create that leverage to change.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that it is so powerful is because it goes against the way that we generally think.
Mm,
We generally think about cost in relationship to changing.
mm,
We don't generally think about cost in relationship to not changing.
yes.
So if we change, or if we pay for a program, if we get into another relationship, if we do something, if we take action, what's the cost of that action? That's the way our fears generally work. But what really moves us as humans is recognizing that it's actually costing more, or hurting more, or preventing more by not doing something, by
Mm,
remaining the same, right? It's that old classic line of some version of, when the pain of remaining the same outweighs the pain of change, well, then you'll change. And, but that's not the constant or the common stream of thought.
yeah,
So that's why this question of what is the thing that you're holding on to costing you, meaning if you don't change, then it'll just continue costing this.
right.
Now we have somebody that's usually going to be more open to making a change, because we want to stop the pain, whatever
Yeah,
this pain is, or preventing us from from whatever the experience is that we want to change, right?
yeah.
So now this next question is one of my favorites. It's a way to have the client just sort of step into ownership, and we intentionally make it not sound definitive or final,
Mm,
because that produces a lot of resistance. So the question is, let's pretend you chose this. Why would you have chosen it? And this can be the belief, or it can just be the process of shifting the belief. So this is a little bit open ended.
right.
But what we're getting them to is, number one, just trying, like, just try it on that I actually chose this. Because if I chose it, then I can unchoose it. And if I would have chosen this, why would I have chosen it? And what it does is it takes us to a different perspective. It usually pulls us up into a higher level of wisdom. And what we're looking for, and what usually comes out of the client, is some form of lesson that needs to be learned, right? Like,
Mhm.
I need to heal this piece, or I need to learn how to love myself, or I need to um, evolve, or I need to get this skill, whatever it is. But what is it that's waiting for us on the other side of this? So it's like our higher wisdom says, in order to create what we want to create on the planet, or in order to fulfill the purpose that we have in our lives, we need to learn this lesson. So therefore, I'm going to create this experience that is going to produce everything that it produces. A lot of times it's irritation and frustration, all that stuff. But we have to go through that in order to learn this lesson. And I'm so committed to the outcome that we want to produce that I know we have to learn this lesson. Therefore, I'm going to choose it.
Mm,
Now, we don't think this way consciously. And I don't know anybody that really did choose a certain belief when they were 2 years old, 3 years old, from this place of wisdom. So it has an analogous kind of feel, right? It operates like an analogy. Let's just pretend I'm not saying that you did. Let's just pretend that you did. And if you did, why did you?
Mm.
Now, it's a little Jedi mind trick of a question, because as soon as we say we're just pretending that you did, the next piece of the question is embedding that you did.
Right.
So let's just pretend that you did. Why did you?
Mhm.
And that's where the ownership comes in. And
Right.
because the question is worded the way it is, and when it's asked inside of rapport and curiosity, it produces some really powerful responses.
Yeah.
And then it adds some positivity or some value to the thing. Like, oh, wow, I got to learn this. I like it. It produces kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And it comes from the client. And that's always critical, that we keep the client at choice and get the answers from them.
Absolutely. It's another way of just gently detaching them from the story so that they can see it from another perspective. It's one of my favorite questions. Just let's pretend, just for a moment.
Yeah, just for a moment too. That's a good one, because that adds the temporary nature to it. I think that was the word that I was searching for earlier. And if it's just a temporary thing, we're just gonna try it on and let's just pretend. And even the way that you said it, we're using a different tonality, like just for now. And a lot of times we'll say it with smiles. Just for now, let's just pretend. Why? And the gentleness, as you said, is
Mhm.
part of the power of the question. The
Absolutely.
Go ahead. You say something else.
Well, I will, because and I one of the things that I firmly believe in is I will not wrestle you as your coach. I'm not going to wrestle you or argue with you or against you for your beliefs. They're yours. Like they're yours. Now I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to ask these questions, with love and with compassion and with gentleness and with an advocacy for you to change because of what you want to experience. But I'm not going to fight you, because if I fight you, you're going to clamp down even harder and I'm going to lose. Right? You'll win. And so I want my clients to know that even though it might sound like it's a little snarky and I'm being sarcastic, like just for now, I want you to know you can keep it, right? You can pick this back up anytime you want to.
Yeah, and when we know we can keep something, but we choose not to,
Hmm.
then that's an empowering choice.
Yeah.
And part of that is this next question. The fifth question is the belief serving you?
Whew.
And what we want the client to recognize is you can keep the belief. It's not a good or bad belief. It's not a right or wrong. It's just a belief. It's just a story. The question is, does the story serve you?
Hmm.
And what we mean by that, although we do keep it open, the way we just shared it with you, the way we worded it, but what we're meaning is it going to produce what you want to produce in your world? Like, if you have a belief that you're unlovable, is that serving you in finding the relationship of your dreams? Well, probably not, because those two things are not going to match up. Is the belief that money is the root of all evil serving your desire to be financially free? Probably not. So it's not right or wrong. It's, does it serve you? And that's just an alignment question.
Right.
Does the story align with your desires?
Ooh.
And if it doesn't, one of them has to go. Either the story has to go or the desire has to go. But you can't keep a story that won't produce the desire and hope the desire happens, hope the goal happens, when the story that you're holding on to doesn't have the capacity to produce the goal. Now, if we just shove that in their face at the very beginning without a lot of these questions and rapport and exploration, then it might not go as well, right? So sometimes, I think you said just a few moments ago that we have to sort of gently detach
Mhm.
to get them to a new perspective and then start to take a little bit more ownership. And, most of the time, I'd say 9.5 times out of 10, they'll go, no, this story doesn't serve me. But the energy is so much different. I imagine that's what you experienced too. The energy isn't like they're fighting or wrestling or defending against you as the coach. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I can't deny that this story won't produce what I want.
Right.
So no, it's not serving me.
Yeah, cool. And that's a lot of times what I say to my clients, right? Like, I mean, yeah, good awareness, right? Because we've just been, I feel like the image that came to me when you were talking is that we've just pulled a little bit apart from the story, and now we're just like looking at it from all these different angles. But when we're in the story and attached to the story and clinging to it like it's our truth, we don't have the perspective to be able to see what the costs actually are, or if it is serving. But as we're looking at it from this, like, kind of sitting side by side, like, dang, no, that's not, awesome. Right. So now what do
Now
you want
what?
to do? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that shift of perspective is so critical.
Mhm.
We're not going to produce any significant change in our life without changing our perspectives.
Mhm.
And we're usually not going to change any beliefs without changing our perspectives. And that does loosen the grip, as you said earlier, to give us a different angle. And now what? So that's ultimately we got to land the plane and give them a way out of this. So you want to handle this or share this next the final question?
Absolutely. So, what is a new or a more empowering story that would be in alignment to the experience or to the life that you do want to be living?
What's really important about this question is we're not asking them with any level of shame or um I don't know, I'm thinking of another word, but shame is really the essence that we want to avoid. That they're stupid, what is the truth? We're not shoving it down their throat like that. We're just saying, all right, to your point and to your energy, cool. What's another story? What's a better story that could produce the outcome? Or what's another story that would be aligned? Or what's a story that you wish you felt were true in your life? So we're just asking almost like a theoretical question.
Mhm.
We're not saying what's the truth that you've been so stupid your whole life that you haven't gotten yet, right, dummy? We're just saying what's another story. And so we're neutralizing the effect.
Mhm.
And throughout this whole process, we've kind of energized the effect of the old story, or the attachment rather of the old story, kind of detached from the old story. But we can't just immediately attach with a bunch of energy and ferociousness and intensity to this new story, because it really truly is a new story, a lot of times. Now, every once in a while, somebody will just dive right back in and recognize, wow, I've got this truth that I've just been denying my whole life. And what's really true is that I'm surrounded by love and opportunity, and I have all the wealth and all the things that I really want. And if the client does go there and immediately entrench themselves into the new story, then great. But we're not trying to force that.
Right.
We're just allowing it to be, it would actually be really cool if I believed that money opportunities are all around me. Great. Now that's just the beginning of a new story. And
Mm.
that's what we're wanting with belief work. We're wanting to start a new story, or recognize that another story has been operating all this time, and then we have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So now it's like we've got two channels on the TV rather than just one that we were operating with before.
Yeah. And another version of this is like, what's the whole story? Because there's been so
Mhm.
many times that I have been telling a story, what you were sharing earlier, that actually is true from one perspective. But especially now that I've shifted my perspective and have detached myself a little bit more, what's the whole story?
That's a really good one, because then it brings us up to a much bigger, like all encompassing, wise
Mhm.
perspective, so that it's not necessarily either or, like either this channel or that channel. The
Right.
belief that we were holding on to is inside of some bigger universe, or some bigger awareness, or a bigger question. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. What's the whole story? So with these questions, you'll be able to poke around at the beliefs that your clients have, and I think you'll find that there's just magic that can happen on the other side, right? The questions themselves are not magic, but the outcome can feel magical to the client when there's a totally new awareness, or there's this new story that they start, or the whole story that they fall into, and their body language can change, their feelings can change, their patterns can change. It's amazing what can happen when we unravel a story that has been causing somebody to be misaligned with what they want in their life. So give these questions a shot. If you want support around the whole process of the deep work coaching, then we have multiple ways to support you. You can register for a free consultation call in the description below, and you'll get on the phone with one of our coaches to help you figure out what your next step is, whether it's something internal or something strategic and external related to your business. We'll support you however we can.
Mm.
Is there anything you want to leave them with? You get the final word.
No pressure.
That's 2 words.
All right. Uh, don't dismiss the simplicity. It really is a story plus evidence. So that's what tripped me up right early on. I was just like, it can't be this simple. And it really can be this simple when we can help a client open up that possibility to a new story, or to seeing the whole story, and then encouraging them to collect that new evidence that supports that new story they created. It truly can change everything.
Now, if you like this video, check out that video where we talk about how to use powerful questions to get your clients into action.
When we say things like, I just want to get rid of all my fears, right? And I'm just hearing you say, like, it's ludicrous, right? You would die, right? You would literally die. You would ruin all your relationships. That's not the goal.